the final installment of our little series on recovering after an affair. My name is Cindy. I'm one of the founders here at Affaircare with my dear hubby David. And we've been walking through a little series on how to recover after an affair. And today's podcast is going to be about the final step in recovering after an affair, and that is our rebuilding tools. Ending the affair is not enough to keep your marriage together. Usually, marriage is continual work. That is to say, it's not like you just coast and you get to stop at some point. But if you keep up the continuous maintenance work, there's benefits to the efforts that you're putting in. Most things that are kind of worth it are not easy. A good marriage is the same way. It's not necessarily easy, but it is worth it. It's pretty common for people to believe that that they have something special. We're special, and that the work that other people have to do on their marriage is not necessary. That or that oh well, we've been married for 15 years. I can relax now. I don't have to put as much effort into it. Or the other one. Oh, it should just come naturally. We should just love each other from God. No. In real life, actually, though, those are the marriages that end in divorce because they're not putting effort into it. We put a little bit of effort into pursuing happiness. And happiness is not something that just automatically, flows from that kind of stuff. No, you have to actually do a little bit of work to achieve happiness, and it's the same for your marriage. If you want to feel love, you're thinking to yourself, well, I want to feel those loving feelings again. You have to actually do some things. And so we have a few tools that we recommend that would help create an environment that where a relationship could grow and become a healthier and stronger, equal team kind of relationship. So, along with the help of a third party, sometimes that's handy. There are several tools we have on the Affaircare website that will help you grow toward a better marriage. You can find these tools on affaircare.com/ I think we call it quizzes or assessments or questionnaires, something like that. So look on that page. I think it's called quizzes, and you'll find these tools and a little link to them. So the first one I would like to talk to you about is the Myers-Briggs Personality Type Indicator. Now, this tool is, honestly, it's gigantic. We use this tool a lot to aim to improve understanding between you and your spouse. On our page, we have a link to the quiz, so you can find out. It's like a little self-scoring inventory that gives you an introduction to your personality type. It's not a professional assessment, so don't get me wrong, but it's just something you can use to start talking to each other and start learning about each other. We find it extremely helpful because on the Myers-Briggs there's 4 little indicators. The first one is I or E. Are you an introvert or an extrovert? The next one is N or S. Are you intuitive or a sensor? The next one is T or F. Are you a thinker or a feeler? And then the final one is J or P. Are you a judger or a perceiver? And each one, after, I'll go through what each one of them means very briefly, but what we found is that when people find out which they are, like I myself am INFP, and occasionally I do a little bit of J, we found that once you understand yourself, you can say, oh, that's why I do that. And once you understand your spouse, you can realize that, some of the stuff that they do is not necessarily a personal affront against you. It's just their personality type. We've heard countless arguments about, my husband doesn't like my friends, or my wife never wants to leave home. That's the difference between an introvert and an extrovert. Obviously, an introvert, when they feel like their energy is depleted and stuff, they want a little alone time, and that's how they recharge their batteries, is by maybe, doing something alone or with one other person. That's an introvert. An extrovert would go out and socialize with other friends, and what they do is they kind of gather the energy of others, and then they feel better. So if you happen to be an introvert married to an extrovert, you're going to get that argument. My wife always wants to just sit at home. My husband never takes me out anywhere. And that's because you have the E and the I. And it's not, there you can see a perfect example. This is not somebody doing something personal. It's just that if you leave an extrovert at home all the time, they're going to feel horrible. They'll feel sick. And likewise, if you take an introvert and drag them out every night, they will also feel sick. So if you can say to yourself, well, hey, what my spouse is doing is just their way of charging their batteries, it's reasonable for them to want to charge their battery of energy. Let's work out ways that work for both of us. Instead of thinking of it as an affront, you feel a little bit better and your marriage will grow. So again, to go over the other ones, the N and the S, intuitive person what is your method of gathering data? Now, sensor one is easy to understand, right? You use your senses. You're going to see it with your eye. You're going to hear it with your ear. You're going to, taste it with your, and then you say, this is the data that I have gathered is because my senses told me so. An empirical person. The intuitive person may not be able to put their finger on why. They might say, I just have a feeling. This is a person who, we call it intuition, but really what it is they've gathered some data and they're not sure what method they used to get it. They just have this data available and they've noticed it. Maybe they're really good at reading subtle body language and they happen to pick up on it, but they didn't think to themselves out loud, oh, that was some subtle body language. So an intuitive person trusts their intuition, their gut feelings. Okay, then the next two were the thinker and feeler. This is probably the biggest place where we have a bit of a clash amongst our people, and that is one of them will be a thinker and one a feeler. The thinking person tends to be very rational and tends to be they use their, like, I'm going to use my thoughts to make a decision. I'm going to take the evidence that I gathered with my senses and I'm going to decide via my thoughts, which makes sense, which is more logical. That's the thinker person. The feeler person is somebody who makes their decisions based on their feelings. So, for example, oh, this feels good, I'll do that some more. Oh, I want to feel happy, so I'll do that some more. They make in their decisions rather than thinking, well, if I do this to follow my feelings, the result will be this, that would be a thinker mode. And so what happens quite often, we've found, is it can tend to go a little bit along gender lines, but it doesn't always. So I'm not going to mention which gender tends to be more thinker and which gender tends to be more feeler. But one of the big arguments we often hear is the feeler person will say, oh my God, I can't believe it. He or she is so cold and calculating. All they ever do is think, and they don't have an emotional response. Well, they do feel emotions. That's not how they respond. They respond via a thought. Likewise, the thinking spouse will be the one who says, I can't believe you didn't even think of the consequences of when you go off and do that, why didn't you think about what was going to happen? Their spouse didn't think about it because they were a feeler. So this is one of the biggest arguments we get often, is the thinker and the feeler. And then finally, the last one is the judger and the perceiver. And this one's a little bit easy to figure out. The judger people, I do this little hand motion with them. They like things in order. They like to follow rules. I want to put this in a box. And the way that they understand things and then thus interact and express things is via the rules. Like, they want to be model citizens. They're lawful good people if you're a gamer, right? They want their models, we are going to be good citizens and obey the president, and that's a lawful person, right? That's a judge. Well, according to the rules, I should. A judge person will do a lot of that should, because the way it should be done. According to the rule, it should be like this. Okay, that's a judge. The perceiver person is a person who, they see like 100 variations of options of things you could do. So, for example, here's a pretty typical argument you get from a J and a P, is that the judge will see things either all black or all white. Like, that was wrong. There's no room for discussion. The P is going to see it like, well, there's no reason why you couldn't do this or this or this or this. The judge might say, you the dishwasher is loaded wrong because you should have the pans on top because otherwise it blocks the water from the bottom. And the perceiver will say, you can put any dish anywhere you want to as long as the water sprays on it and it gets clean. We don't care. So there's a million ways to load the dishwasher. So that's the difference. And once you understand your Myers-Briggs personality, it can make a big difference towards understanding your spouse and creating a healthy marriage. So that's a very important tool, and we start with that one often. The second one that's very important is the love languages. Again, we have links to this on our affaircare.com on the quizzes page. And some of the tools that we have are tools that we wrote, and some of them are not. And this one is one that we did not write because why reinvent the wheel? This is a good tool by itself already. This tool is from Dr. Gary Chapman. It's pretty well known around the world, whatnot. He's kind of an expert. The 5 love languages, and you can find that on 5lovelanguages.com. And what it is that Dr. Chapman kind of observed couples and asked them a bunch of questions on how do you show love to your spouse and what kind of things make you feel love. And he discovered that, in kind of broad strokes, there's 5 basic categories of ways that people can speak love. Okay? And the 5 categories are words of affirmation, quality time, receiving gifts, acts of service, and physical touch. Now, let's go over them very briefly, but you can imagine words of affirmation means that actions for that person do not speak louder than words. In real life, this is a person who wants to hear basically unsolicited comments. Hearing words, I love you, are important, but maybe reasons behind the love will really will boost their spirits. Thank you for this. I appreciate it for that. By the same token, if a person is a words of affirmation person, if you insult them, that will leave a huge hole, and they probably won't be able to get over it very easily because it's like the antithesis of their love language. Okay, so then the next person is a quality time. For this person, nothing says I love you like full, undivided attention. Being there for this kind of person is extremely critical, but really being there. TV's turned off, your fork and your spoon are put down, your eyes are connecting with theirs, and even sort of taking the time to reflect back to them what you've heard them say. Putting your chores aside, even though you have busy things you've got to do. When you do that to your significant other, and that's their love language, they're going to really feel special and loved. By the same token, if this is your spouse's love language, and you are constantly distracted by the cell phone, by maybe putting off dates because something came up, that's going to be especially hurtful for them. Okay, our next love language is receiving gifts person. Now, don't misunderstand this particular love language for materialism. This person is not into getting a bunch of stuff. That's not the goal. But rather, they like a little thoughtful, kind gift that had a little effort behind it, expressing, "Ooh, I thought of you, and I know this is something you like, and so I picked it up for you." Okay? If you are a person who speaks this gift, the perfect little gift or gesture shows that you are known, that you are cared for, and that you are prized. So, as an example, if you Hershey's Kisses, because I know you like chocolate, and I'm going to give you one every day, that would be a perfect little thing for a receiving gifts kind of person. Likewise, if you miss a birthday or an anniversary, or you buy just last minute Christmas Eve and you run out and buy them a vacuum and it's a stupid gift like that, or the horrible sweater, that would be a disaster for them, and that would be especially hurtful for them. Okay, the next kind of love language is acts of service. Now, have you ever heard a wife that says, they're using that excuse, "Oh, I'm too tired for sex." that it's conceivable that that may be a person who is an acts of service person. So you might want to just jot that away. Can vacuuming really be an expression of love? Yeah, it actually can. Because what happens here, this is a person where anything that you can do to lighten their burden, kind of ease the responsibilities, that is seen by them as an act of love, and that person will speak volumes to them. The kind of words and attitude that a person like this wants to hear would be, let me do that for you, or let me help you. Because here's what, if you are the one spouse and you have to make dinner, do the dishes, help with homework, give them a bath, and you got to do all of that within about an hour and a half, that can be really heavy. It feels really exhausting. And then by the time you're done, you're not motivated then to be all loving. Likewise, if you have a spouse that says, hey, let me do this with you, it can mean so much. This person, if you were to be lazy or you were to break a commitment, if you say, sure, I'll do it, and then you forget, yeah, right, in real life you didn't really want to do it, that speaks to them volumes, and what it says is that you don't love them enough to actually help. So that will break up your love. And then the final kind of love language is the physical touch. Now, this language is not all about the bedroom, although that is involved here. This person is usually kind of a touchy-feely person, right? They love, like, hugs and pat on the back, holding hands, cuddling, sort of touching their shoulder or their arm like that, rubbing their shoulders, massages. That means to them that you're in touch, you're connected. Showing concern, care, love. It means a world to the physical touch person. Likewise, if your physical presence is neglected, or you're not accessible to them, so to speak, and you're abusing having a lack of physical touch, that will again be pretty much unforgivable and extremely destructive. So one of the reasons why this particular one is so necessary is this particular tool, is that if you can discover what your own love language is and discover what your spouse's is, then you can discover ways to express to them how you actually feel about them. One of the perfect example, a typical example we get, is the husband thinks to himself, oh, I love my wife. I'm going to take care of her. So he's going to go out in her car. He's going to change her oil. He's going to clean the car. It's going to be perfect. And he's thinking, make sure the gas tank is all nice and full so that when she gets in her car to drive, she has nothing to worry about. Meanwhile, she's in the house and she's thinking, he never spends any time with me. All he ever does is play with that stupid car. He's thinking he's telling her he loves her, but in real life, she's a quality time person. And so what he's telling her is he doesn't love her. And so guess what? Eventually, that starts to be harmful, and it destroys their marriage. So find out what your spouse's love language is, and then if you do love them, express it to them in their way. Okay, there's two tools that we have written on our site, and that's the love kindlers and the love extinguishers questionnaires. The love kindlers are the things that you can add to the fire of your love that will make the fire blaze and become hot. And the love extinguishers are the actions that you can do that will dampen the fire, put it out, and gradually kill your marriage. What you want to do is take those quizzes and find out, what am I doing that is killing my marriage? And what does my spouse do that kills my love for them? And likewise, they will do the same. And eventually what you want to do is be able to share those with each other. The love extinguishers one is probably the hardest one to share, but it's also probably the one that needs to be shared the first, if you can do it. Because if you keep adding a kindler, and then you do an extinguisher right after it, all you've done is that's when you get that feeling like, I keep doing all this loving stuff, but it's like we're getting nowhere and our wheels are spinning. Well, that's why. Because you did the kindler, but then she did the extinguisher and it just put it right out. No progress, okay? The last one that I wanted to go over, the last little tool, is REBT. This stands for, it was developed by a guy named Dr. Albert Ellis. It stands for Rational Emotive Behavior Therapy. For this one, we actually have a little kind of a diagram thing, but it's easy to remember. It's A, B, C, D, E. So what happens, there's some sort of activating event or something occurs, okay? So I call it the activating is for A, okay? Let's say there's a fight between the two of you. Then the next step in this actually is B, beliefs. So what happens is you and your spouse, let's say let's do the argument about cleaning the car, like we were just talking about. The husband cleaned the car. And he comes in and he says, he's thinking to himself, I did a great job. I cleaned her car. And she's mad. Oh my gosh. You spent all day today. You said today was going to be the day you spent the day with me, and now you haven't done it, and she's mad, right? On his side, the activating event was going to do the car and thinking, I should get a response of appreciation, maybe. And for her, the activating event was him spending all day with the car, and I should have had him. So what you want to do is identify what's your belief, what's your should. Okay? He thinks he should have gotten appreciation, and she thinks I should have gotten his time, and instead he spent it all with the car. Okay, the next part would be C, the emotional consequences. So again, activating event, belief. Now here's the consequences. Now in this one, what you kind of think is, if I didn't get the should, what does that mean? That's what the consequences mean. So for example, for the fella, if he thinks he should have gotten the appreciation, that means if I don't get the appreciation, I'm a loser. Something like that. And she thinks if she did, she should have gotten his time and he didn't give it to her, that means I'm unlovable. So you want to identify what is the thing that's kind of scaring you. What's the major consequence? And then D is dispute. Okay? So you want to, like inside your own mind, dispute what your issue is. Dispute the unrealistic belief. Okay? So we're following along on this example. The guy thinks he should have gotten appreciation, and if he doesn't get appreciation, he's a loser. Okay? So the dispute here would be, well, wait a minute. Maybe if I didn't get appreciation, she's just having a hard day, and it has nothing to do with me. See, you talk against your own little consequence belief there. For her, her belief was that her consequence was, I should get his time, and if I don't get his time, I'm unlovable. Well, she could dispute that by saying, well, wait a minute. I'm still exactly who I am, even if he chose to not do his time. So maybe maybe this is not related to me at all. And then the last thing is the E. This is the effective new belief that you put in place. Okay? So as you can see, the old one, the should, is a belief that's pretty ineffective. Or I'm sorry, the consequence really is the thing that's kind of ineffective. It's really not accurate. So you want to replace it with the new, like more accurate. And so that's E, effective. And so for the fella, it could be something like, okay, I'm going to choose to do things for her that show I love her, even if she doesn't appreciate it. I don't need to necessarily get appreciation. Or he could also replace it with, I want appreciation, I really do, so I think I'm going to ask her for it. That would be a good one. For the lady, same thing. She thinks she should get his time, and if she doesn't, she's unloving. Well, she could replace that belief with, well, wait a minute, this has nothing to do with me, so if I want love, I'm going to go and ask him to do something with me. Hey, would you spend some time with me? So you see how you go through, it's the activating event, the belief, the consequence of the belief, the dispute, the kind of bad belief, and then you effectively replace it with a new, more rational thought. And that's basically it. It's A, B, C, D, E. Again, we will put links to this on the tools page, the quizzes page, so that you can do some of it yourself. And what we eventually would like you to do is to just, if you catch yourself in the middle of a argument, you know how it can be sometimes you just, at the moment, it spirals out of control. And then you think to yourself, well, now, wait a minute. Let me see if I can't write down this on a piece of paper. And you do A, B, C, D, E down a piece of paper. You just write out what the things were. And then eventually what hopefully will happen is that as you are in the middle of an argument, you'll partly catch yourself in the middle of it and say, oh, wait a minute, I got to do that ABC thing. And sort of do it as it's happening. And then gradually it will start, even when it starts to unspiral a little bit, you can sort of stop the progress and get more rational about your emotional behavior. And hence the REBT. So, okay, that's the whole webcast today. I hope you have enjoyed everything. And next week we'll be starting, we will not start a new series. Next week I was just going to do a little webcast or a podcast on how to survive the holidays when your spouse is in the midst of an affair or if you're divorcing. And then at the beginning of the new year, I thought we would start up a new series. Maybe I'm thinking of one of two things. One, maybe like after a divorce, how to like recover after that, or likewise possibly after how to help your children survive an affair. So just let me know if there's one of those two that you kind of prefer. But otherwise, thank you so much for listening. I hope you had a wonderful day. Thanks. Bye-bye.